The client reaches out, you have a great discovery call, you start working on concepts, but you haven't actually outlined a structured timeline yet. How do you fix this? Easy. You have to include a project timeline in your fee proposal. So when they are accepting your fee proposal, they are also accepting the timeline. The sooner you introduce it, the better. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Design Dialogue and our Thursday episode for this week. Today we're diving into a pretty big stress point that I hear a lot of designers complaining about, and that is timelines. If you've ever had a client ask, when will this be done? Why is this taking so long? Or I thought we'd be further along by now, then you know exactly how frustrating timeline confusion can be. But here's the thing. A clear, structured project timeline doesn't just keep clients happy, it keeps you in control. That's what we're breaking down today. Why a timeline is the key to avoiding client frustration, the most common timeline mistakes designers make, and how to create a project timeline that actually works. And if this is something you struggle with, this is exactly what I cover in the process. My course that walks you step by step from the initial client inquiry through to a signed contract and the documents that you need throughout that process. And as part of those documents, there is a project timeline. So you're setting expectations and creating a stress-free workflow right from the very start. So why is a timeline your best friend? Most client frustrations aren't actually about delays. They're about misaligned expectations. Clients do not understand how long things take. They assume design is pretty instant, and they don't factor in supplier lead times, approvals, or revisions. That's why, if you don't actively manage their expectations, they'll create their own. And that's where tension and problems start. A clear, structured timeline sets realistic expectations from day one, helps the client see the bigger picture, and gives you a tool to manage the process confidently. And the best part, when clients feel informed and in control, they trust you more, which makes the whole experience smoother for everyone. Now, before we talk about how to fix this problem, let's go through some of the biggest timeline mistakes I see designers making all the time. So the first one is not setting a timeline until it's too late. The client reaches out, you have a great discovery call, you start working on concepts, but you haven't actually outlined a structured timeline yet. How do you fix this? Easy. You have to include a project timeline in your fee proposal. So when they are accepting your fee proposal, they are also accepting the timeline. The sooner you introduce it, the better. Number 2, being too optimistic. You think it's going to go smoothly, we'll have this done in 6 weeks, there won't be any problems, I won't get sick, there won't be any delays. But you don't factor in that someone always gets sick, there's always client delays. A supplier might be away on holidays and takes longer to get back to you. Things happen. You always need to build in buffer time. If you think something will take 6 weeks, plan for 8. If everything runs smoothly, great. But if not, you have breathing room. You really want to under-promise and over-deliver. Number 3, not communicating the timeline clearly. Maybe you know the project phases, you know the steps that it takes to deliver an interior design project. But does your client? Have you actually told the client what is involved in an interior design project? If they don't know, they're going to start panicking when they don't hear from you for a week, or they don't understand where the deliverables are that they're expecting and at what phase of the project they are going to get those deliverables. The easy fix, share the full project timeline at the start and check in regularly. If clients know what to expect and when to expect it, they'll be much more patient and cooperative. So how do you create a project timeline? The first is to break it down into clear phases. Instead of just saying, this will take 12 weeks, break it down into clear, digestible phases. So for example, phase 1, concept development, takes 3 weeks. Phase 2, design and documentation, 4 weeks, and so on and so on. When you outline it like this, clients understand the process and they won't expect everything to happen overnight. Step 2 is to build in checkpoints. One of the best ways to keep projects moving is check-in points. This helps set the client's expectations of when they should expect to hear from you, but also when you need them to be switched on to the project so that they can give you approvals and feedback in a timely manner. For example, before finalizing drawings, you send a check-in. We're wrapping up the concept phase. Here's what we've developed so far. Let us know if anything needs tweaking before we move forward. Little check-ins like this reassures the client that things are progressing, and it prevents backtracking, which costs time and money. Giving them these little check-in points means that you are giving them a process to give you feedback. Step 3 is communicate the timeline consistently. Setting a timeline at the start isn't enough. You need to keep reinforcing it. Few simple ways to do this. Obviously, we're sending a timeline overview with our fee proposal. We are also then resending that timeline in our welcome pack. Every time we finish a stage, we are going back to the timeline, and I usually go completed or something, and we send a revised timeline so that they can see where we are up to in the process. The other thing is to also send regular email updates. And I've spoken about this in several other podcasts. These don't have to be weekly. It really depends on what phase of the project you are up to. But in those email updates, whether they're fortnightly, weekly, monthly, depending on where you are, reference the timeline so that it's just keeping it fresh in their mind. Now, even with the best planning, things happen. Clients delay approvals, suppliers run late, unexpected changes come up. So what do you do when the timeline starts slipping? Stay ahead of it. If you see a delay coming, tell the client before they ask. Flag it and say, we've had a delay here, which means we're going to be 2 weeks later delivering this stage. I'm just revising the timeline to show our new expected completed date. Frame it as a collaboration. Instead of saying this is delayed, say, to keep the quality high, we need an extra week. Here's how that affects our timeline. And offer a solution. If the delay is on the client's end, remind them, once we receive your feedback, we can move into the next phase right away. When you approach it proactively and positively, it keeps the relation strong, and even when things don't go perfectly. At the end of the day, a structured timeline isn't just about preventing frustration. It's about giving both you and your clients confidence in the process. So, a couple of things that I hope you take away from today's episode. A clear timeline builds trust and eliminates client anxiety. Setting realistic expectations up front prevents frustration later. And constantly reinforcing the timeline keeps projects on track. And of course, if you need a step-by-step system to make this easier, we really do go over this in detail in the process course. And it is going to give you so much confidence from initial inquiry through to signed contract. If you want to learn more about how to sign up for the process, the link is in the show notes. And of course, if you have any questions about the course, please send me a DM or an email. I'd love to answer them for you. So that's it for today. If this episode resonated with you, please let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram or an email. Thanks for tuning in, and until next week with our next Design Dialogue. That's it for today's episode. I hope this gave you some fresh ideas and motivation to refine how you run your studio. But here's the thing, having the right strategies is one thing, actually implementing them is another. And if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just unsure where to start, that's exactly what my Systems and Processes Health Check is for. It's a one-on-one deep dive into how your studio runs, pinpointing where things are working, where they're not, and giving you a clear roadmap to streamline your processes. And the thing is, my health check is different from other mentoring out there. We don't just talk, we put together clear, actionable items that I hold you accountable for, because I want to make sure that at the end of the health check, you see a real difference in your business. Imagine having a studio that runs smoothly, where you're in control, and where you can finally focus on the design work that you love. If that sounds like exactly what you need, head to the website to book in your health check today. Thanks for tuning in, and if you found this episode helpful, share it with a fellow designer who could use these insights too. See you for our next Design Dialogue.